Hey guys, Tyler from Duelcastermage.com here. I know Commander 2018 is fully spoiled now, but it's not implemented in X-Mage yet, unfortunately, so we're taking another look at Brawl this week with the matchup between Chromium the Mutable and Aryel, Knight of Windgrace. I put this Chromium deck together with the intention of making it draw-go style hard control as much as possible, so if you check out the deck list in the video description below, you'll notice it's chock full of instants. Almost all of the playable counterspells, card draw, and instant speed removal in the standard Esper card pool. That means it's heavy blue, medium black, and just a bit white, and the only creature in the deck besides Chromium himself is Torrential Gearhulk. My opponent's Aryel deck is pretty straightforward as you'd expect, Knight Tribal with a lot of the good stuff white and black cards in the format. Aryel's extremely problematic if she survives since she can easily generate value without spending additional cards. I hope you enjoy the match. Alright, let's see what we can do with Esper Control. I'm in the draw, and this hand's pretty great. I got all colors of mana, a bunch of removal, some card advantage, so can't ask for too much more than that. His first play is a Cavalry Drillmaster. Not too impressive right now, just a 2-1 for 2. Kind of a nice limited card, but happens to be a Knight, so there you go. I have a Fatal Push for this if I need to, but I think I'd rather just wait and see if he plays a better creature, and instead he plays Sigiled Sword of Valoron. Kind of a potentially problematic card for me because it creates creature tokens repeatedly. So, you know, that could be problematic here. I draw another land, which is great, because I can still play either Fatal Push or Blink of an Eye. He goes to equip his creature, and this is just a perfect time to Fatal Push it, make him waste some mana, try to get back into the tempo game here. I play my fourth land, he goes Aryel, Knight of Windgrace, and I let that resolve because I have a few ways to deal with it that aren't, you know, counter spells. I play the Blink of an Eye here with Kicker. Kind of a judgment call. I really wanted to get that fifth land to keep making my land drops. I played Duress, and the only target is an Eldest Reborn, so I take that. He plays this Gallant Cavalry, and here's I let that resolve, which is actually a huge play mistake because you know, potentially, you know, I wanted to draw a card. I wanted to get my other white source so I could play this Fumigate, and thought I could deal with it with Fumigate here, but it's really problematic because now I don't have a great response this turn. He's going to equip his Knight, attack, make another Knight, and I go from like 21 to 13. It's just too much damage to take, and I actually spew off without casting a spell. So now I'm kind of in a weird position. He attacks again. I play Chromium, and the reason I do this is, one, to save some damage, and two, I kind of want to bait him to cast, like, empty his hand. And one of those cards I saw earlier was Ravenous Chupacabra. I think, I don't know if you realized it, but he could have killed Chromium there by playing the Chupacabra since it already had damage from combat. But regardless, this turn he kind of forced to Fumigate. So I gained some of that life back, but I have to put Chromium back in the command zone. He's going to cost a whopping 9 next time. Aryel comes out again, and I let Aryel resolve and just counter this Graveyard Marshal instead because I kind of knew he had the Marshal from before, and I have a Vraska's Contempt for Aryel, so I cast this Consign to Oblivion now, targeting, well, Consign at least, targeting the equipment, which allows me to deal with it fully because I can Aftermath the Oblivion part while he has exactly 2 cards in hand to get the full value. So one of the ways you can deal with artifacts and enchantments in an Esper deck too, without having to run dedicated removal for him. I have enough mana to play this treasure map, so I'm a little bit of shields down here. So he attacks me to 8. And then I say go. I assume he's going to use Aryel's ability. And I kind of have my stop screwed up here. I disallow the activation of the land, but I meant to also use Vraska's Contempt on it, but I didn't have the right stop on my end step. But regardless, I use the Vraska's Contempt at his upkeep, and he actually doesn't make a Knight in response. Instead, he'd rather just recast Aryel for the 3rd time. Attack me down to 8, and I get to Scry. Don't want that land. So I'm kind of like playing off the top of my deck, but at least to get a few Scries here. I don't want the Thaumatic Compass really either. Pass back. Now I get to flash in Chromium for the full 9 mana and block Aryel. He does have a Murder though, but at least I get to block Aryel, but there's no point in discarding a card to save it because it would die anyway. And then we see a Knight of Malice come out. So now I'm kind of in a lot of trouble here. I had to scry something here on my upkeep. I keep the Hieroglyphic Illumination on top because it will dig me even deeper. I'm trying to find another Wrath or settle the wreckage or something here. So play the Hieroglyphic Illumination, only get a cast out, so I do not have quite enough. I think I might have been able to survive a turn there, but I concede anyway. Kind of a few play mistakes that really came back to punish me that game. I'm not blocking the Gallant Cavalry being the main one. All right, game 2, I keep my second hand. Now you have a free mulligan in Brawl, so that's kind of nice. This Prophetic Prism I'm going to be leaning on quite a bit, it looks like, because only have white and black mana so far. We see a turn 1 Dauntless Bodyguard. Always nice when you can have a relevant turn 1 play in Brawl. That card has potential to deal a lot of damage, but I play this Prophetic Prism, and this is going to color fix me quite nicely without costing a card by itself. Do not draw land still, so that's a little dicey. My opponent plays Knight of New Benalia, and again, cards like this are really good against Chromium because they just come in really early, deal a lot of damage, and there's not really efficient ways to deal with them outside of Fatal Push. So I duress him, take his Murder as the only legal target. He attacked me for 5 on 18, plays the Blackblade Reforged, which he must have just top decked. And he doesn't have any legendary creatures yet, but this represents kind of a problematic equipment, kind of like that Sigiled Sword was last game. Aryel comes down on his 4th turn, attacks me again for another 5, taking pretty big chunks out here. I go to 13, and then I have Vraska's Contempt the Aryel. I could have countered that with Disallow. It's kind of debatable whether one would have been better than the other. I do draw another point-and-click removal in the form of Murder. Okay, Quende comes down, I take another 5, and then I use this opportunity, small window, to play Glimmer of Genius because I really want to hit my land drops. Neither of those are lands. But I do draw land here, so I got Island. I could play Teferi, but I'm just at too low of a life total, and he could have equipped and just killed me, so there's no point in doing that. I have to use my chance now to murder this Quende, make him waste 3 mana at least, and just keep taking big chunks of 5 here. Although I decided to consign to Oblivion the Knight to save a few damage, but it was actually a really bad play because he's able to just recast it immediately. That only prevented 3 damage. And now I can play Teferi, but because I was kind of loose trigger fingers with that Consign to Oblivion, Teferi is vulnerable. Whereas if the Knight was still at Summoning Sickness at this point, I would have had my Teferi still out. Alright, Aryel comes out again, and I cancel that. So at least was able to do a few things that turn. Draw the Gear Hulk. And this X-Mage is actually bugged. This land should have come into play tapped, and I think that informs his decision a little bit. I told him I wouldn't tap the land, and I stay true to my word. Like, I don't want to cheat, so I have 6 mana available, so I do have enough to play the Gear Hulk, flashback Vraska's Contempt to take out the Dauntless Bodyguard. Now I attack him for 5 because I have Disallow for the equipment of Blackblade Reforged. So I'm kind of like trying to stay alive here. We're both pretty low on resources. I'm at a lower life total. I'm able to refill a little bit with this Hieroglyphic Illumination, and this Commit to Memory is really nice right now. So I keep attacking him for 5. It's kind of dubious. I probably should have kept back the Torrential Gear Hulk to block, but it looks like he had Luminous Bonds anyway. I use Field of Ruin on the Memorial to Glory while I have this opportunity, which is actually pretty nice because the land coming into play untapped on my side lets me play Chromium as well. Alright, now I flashback Consign to Oblivion while he has exactly 2 cards in his hand. Take those out, and it looks like he had Josu Vess and Seal Away, so pretty nice. We get immediately he equips Knight of Malice with Blackblade Reforged, but I use this opportunity to put that consign that Blackblade Reforged to Oblivion, committed to memory. There it is, commit to memory. Just tucks it a little bit, 2 cards down, and I can ambush block the Knight of Malice to take that out with Chromium. All right, and I feel like I can have kind of nothing to do in a lot of mana, so I flashback this commit to memory to Time Twister, and we each draw 7. Kind of a close call there, but I feel like I can with this being this late in the game, I can outpace him with 1/1 removal plus card draw. So he plays Banalish Marshal. I counter that with Essence Scatter. Pretty easy card. You won't want that hitting play. Knight of Malice comes back down. Must have gotten reshuffled in. I let that resolve because he has a bunch of mana still. And then Josu Vess. This one's worth countering. Josu Vess, of course, has Menace, so I couldn't block with Chromium, so that needs to go. He attacks me down to 4. I draw Duress, and now I have a few options here. Walk the Plank, History of Benalia, or Karn. And I take the History of Benalia just because it puts out the biggest creatures the quickest. Walk the Plank's not that big a deal. I can just pitch a card to Chromium. Now I anticipate and get a Fatal Push. Attack for 7, put him to 1, and Fatal Push the Knight. I probably should have waited on that because he has a bunch of equipment and stuff, but I just get a little trigger happy again. Karn comes down. Not too scary right now, although this card is very scary overall on turn 4 especially. Just everywhere in Brawl. It's a colorless Planeswalker. It's really strong. So he pluses, and I just give him a land. No big deal. He casts this like Hail Mary Walk the Plank on my Chromium, and I just, of course, pitch a land to give a hexproof. Go down to 1, so it's 1/1 in terms of life total, and I play a pretty huge Pull from Tomorrow at the end of his turn, and he just scoops it up, because I think he was going to die to the Chromium anyway. Even if Chromium had to be humanized, would have gotten him there. Alright, this hand is actually pretty good. Got a lot of card advantage, although I'm missing the removal, so obviously this control decks, you got to draw the right mix of removal and card advantage. We see a turn 2 Knight of Malice, and I opt to keep the cancel on top of my deck because it's kind of removal. I played the Thaumatic Compass instead of the Prophetic Prism because this allows me to, on the next turn, say draw go, and then if he plays something worth countering, I can do that. Otherwise, I can search for a land, make better use of my my resources. All right, we see a Banalish Honor Guard come down. It's just a 2/2, but the fact that it's white pumps up Knight of Malice. So I'm starting to get hit in pretty big chunks again already, going to 22. Now I have Cancel up, which I decide to use on this Aryel, because I don't have another good answer to that. Gotta keep Aryel at bay. That's a pretty scary card. Draw another counterspell, which is nice, so I can counter or play Glimmer of Genius. And we see Arvad the Cursed, which is not amazing right now on this board. He doesn't have any of their legendary creatures right now, but it would pump the earlier White Knight, so I decided to counter it anyway. I just need to protect my life total. So I go down to 12, still getting hit in pretty big chunks, and down to 7. So Glimmer of Genius. I need to dig for something here. 2 lands are not what I want. So hoping to get a Wrath, but Teferi's okay. I play Teferi, and once again, I can't really protect him all that well. Well, actually, I can with Consign to Oblivion, but he has the cast out anyway to deal with Teferi. So luckily for me, the +1 loyalty ability of Teferi sets up a delayed trigger regardless of whether Teferi dies or not, so I will get to untap my lands at the end of my turn. Alright, we get attack down. I Consign to Oblivion the Knight because I really don't want to go to 2. That would turn off the Dark Bargain. Go to 5 instead. He plays Josu Vess, second main, which is a problematic card, but at least he's not able to recast the Knight of Malice. I draw a Fatal Push, which is great, but I'm still trying to dig for a Wrath with Anticipate. Get a land, which is pretty nice too. This allows me to Fatal Push the Knight and then flip the Spires. Oh, actually, I was digging for my 7th land so I could flip the Spires of Araska. That needs 7 lands to do that, and I wanted it to be untapped, so I can use Spires of Araska this turn to stop the damage from Josu. All right, he plays 2 creatures. The second one I'm actually able to counter with Supreme Will. The first one he would have just been able to pay 3, so it wasn't really effective to counter the first one, the Knight of Malice. Looks like I'm sort of kind of stabilizing here at 5. He's got 2 creatures. Now I'm able to flash in Chromium to ambush block the Knight. And this is interesting, kind of a standoff here because he passes priority, which forces me to use the Spires first if I want to use it at all. But I should have kind of seen that coming, him having an instant speed removal spell. So Hour of Glory, targeting Chromium. There's no point in trying to save it because it'll just die tonight anyway. play the Prophetic Prism finally, and keep drawing a few lands. Flashback the Consign to Oblivion because he has exactly 2 cards in hand, and hope to just, you know, do some damage control here. We see a Blackblade Reforged once again come down, and tries to equip Josu, but of course I have the Spires to stop the million damage that would cause me. Go to 2. Unfortunately, I go to 2 because now this Dark Bargain is total blank in my hand. But I draw Cast Out, so I'm able to not die this turn by taking out Josu Vess and using Spires on the Knight of Malice. So I stay at 2 life, and this is the worst mistake of the game. I totally blank here and punt and not counter the Knight of New Benalia with Admiral's Order. I don't know what I was thinking. Instead, I just pass back, and then he plays Daneth the Capuchin Paragon, and actually could have killed me there if he attacked, but he does not, because I have to use the Spires to cast Chromium if I wanted to cast Chromium. So I luckily he's still in this game somehow. But I really wanted, you know, something better than Treasure Map and Search for Ascanta. I mean, they're great cards, but this late in the game, I need some action now. I need to find a removal spell, and don't really have any card draw to actually do that with. So he equips Danitha with the blade, and he attacks with everything. And now I'm 1, you know, removal spell short of actually staying alive because he can only deal with 2 of his threats. So I go out on my own turns with Dark Bargain, dealing 2 to myself, and that's it. So yeah, I know that match went by in a flurry from your perspective, but there were a lot of interesting decisions, which is kind of the point of playing a hard control deck at the end of the day. I made some judgment calls that match that turned out poorly, as well as a huge misplay in Game 3 by not countering that Knight of New Benalia, which probably ended up costing me the match. Overall though, I've had a lot of success with Chromium and Brawl. The deck is super powerful, and if you can stabilize, it often feels like you can't lose. Do you think going full-on draw-go is the best way to build Chromium, or should there be more tap-out elements? Do you think Chromium is better or worse than Teferi in the command zone overall in the current Brawl metagame? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, and please subscribe if you haven't already and you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.